Here we go again. Man, I hate that I have to keep doing this, but we have to keep doing this because no matter what anybody says, the propaganda, I would say, misleading stats, the weird fascination with people trying to remove an option that's been available since the dawn, well, almost since the dawn of systems, definitely since the modern systems. You've got a company within Sony, or a company, Sony, that's literally just trying to remove this option purely for them to make more money. There is no, oh, it's going to be better for us. We're going to get more digital rights. We're going to get more, consumer rights. We're going to get better digital service. There's like none of that here. Let me go ahead and put this down. This is, I got to put this down for this video. There is none of that. It's simply just Sony removing physical because they want to make more money and push more people towards digital. They want to kill the used game market, and that's it. There is no benefit to anybody but Sony. But now we have new data that's coming out that where people are saying, oh my gosh, this proves that nobody's buying physical, that it's a dead media, that this copy of Xenosaga 3 shouldn't exist anymore. If they were to make a new Xenosaga, they should just make it all digital. There should be no Xenosaga remastered on a physical PlayStation 5 or PlayStation 6 disc. It should just be all digital. I disagree, obviously. And we're going to talk about the newest data. We're going to talk about some of the other data that people aren't bringing up. And we're going to go over this nonsense that we've been talking about for a while now at this point. But before we continue, we are giving away a Nintendo Switch 2 at 140,000 subscribers or on September 1st, whichever comes first. Subscribe, like, comment. The winner will be chosen at random, and it's a worldwide giveaway. Thanks, peeps. Okay, so Big Matt Piscatella over there, Circana, formerly of MPD, he put out some new data via Blue Sky, and I actually like Matt Piscatella. I think he's cool. I like the fact how he just kind of gets into the data. He provides that for us, and that's awesome. Like, that's cool. I don't have anything to hate against Matt Piscatella or anything, but we got to talk about this right here. So, Matt Piscatella put up this new Wolverine trailer flooded with 10,000 comments about this from Kotaku. So, yeah, Sony's still getting blasted, lambasted every single time that they make a post, community notes, all sorts of stuff. So, Matt Piscatella quote tweeted this story from Kotaku on Blue Sky and said 2 PlayStation video games sold more than 10,000 physical units in the US during the week ending July 11th, 2026. So somewhat recently. So only 2 sold more than 10,000. 7 have sold more than 100,000 physical units year to date. The source is Circana Retail Tracking Service. And Matt Piscatella also follows that tweet up by saying another tweet or post or whatever they're called on Blue Sky and says, commenting is cool, use your voice and all that, but commenting is cheap. I don't know. So I'm not going to hold that comment against him because I think he's just going off the data that he has. But I think the problem with this is that it's such a, I would say, narrow look at the data and not taking the nuance. You guys know there is nuance in all of this. One, it's choice. So even if 10,000 people or 100,000 people, that's like the first thing that I want to say before I get into how I'm going to refute this. It's choice. If it's 100,000 people plus 7 games, that's still choice for people. I get it. It's not as big as digital. Okay, that's fine. There's not as many people that are streaming as much as downloading games digital, but you still don't want the streaming option removed. And eventually in the future, when streaming becomes more prevalent than downloading digital and they start saying, hey, we're going to take away digital downloads and everything's going to be streaming, are there going to be people that are saying, oh my gosh, everyone's streaming, so I guess, you know what? No digital downloads. Yeah, Sony's right. And then now everything's just streaming. Now you really don't even have anything on hardware. Like, that's what it's going to get to. That is the next step. That is definitely the next step, but whatever on that one. But anyway, when it comes to this data here, this is a little bit skewed. And there's a number of reasons why I think this is skewed. One, because look at the games that released in the first half of this year. Like, what were the big releases? Soros, that was a flop across the board when it comes down to that. What else did we have? Resident Evil Requiem, that's actually sold good physical units. And that's with Keep in mind, that's with Capcom actually sabotaging the physical sales of that game to push more people to buy digital so they can get a bigger cut. Like, honestly, they did not ship anywhere near enough units for how popular that game is. And still to this day, there's not a ton of units of Resident Evil Requiem just in stores. They put just enough, and they want you to actually just buy the game digital so they make more revenue off of it. And if you look at Resident Evil Requiem, many people were saying, I can't find the game. It's sold out. I can't find it. Why would it be sold out? It's Resident Evil. They clearly were controlling and sabotaging the physical sales of that game. Even now at this point, you can't just walk in and find Resident Evil Requiem on store shelves everywhere on any platform. So keep that in mind. Resident Evil Requiem still sold well physical. Now, take a look at this, guys. When we get some more of the bigger games in the second half of the year, there's going to be more physical sales. I think Metal Gear Solid 4, I think that's going to do well physical. You have games like Onimusha. You have other big titles coming out. Wolverine. There are going to be titles that are coming out that are going to do better physical. Nobody's saying that it needs to be majority physical or even 50%, but there's still millions upon millions of people still buying physical games, and that should be supported. Sony owns the technology. It's proprietary. Blu-ray discs are not expensive for them. They are not sitting here bleeding money because they're supporting physical Blu-ray discs. That is crazy if anybody thinks that. It's just not. There's nothing in the financial reports that show that Sony is bleeding money at all when it comes to physical game sales. There's nothing. They're actually making money hand over fist when it comes down to it because of all the microtransactions and stuff that they have. Even for some of those games that are physical that you can buy, you can download the DLC or you can download microtransactions or whatever. You can buy microtransactions and they're making money off that too. So I think it's just silly, in my opinion, for anybody to be defending this. It is an option. You can still love your digital or love your streaming. That doesn't mean we need to remove one option because it's not as popular as digital. That's crazy, in my opinion. And this data that Matt Piscatella shows here, once again, skewed. There's not many big games. What was released? What were all the big PlayStation AAA heavy hitters that get people going out there and buying a physical copy? Not really much. And once again, Resident Evil Requiem sold well physical. Now, check this out, guys. We have the data that I showed you guys last time, so we're going to go over it real quick because there is this chart that is well known, and people like to sit there and just skirt by it and say, oh, well, it was years ago. It doesn't matter. That was back when they actually had a consistent release of games. Sony has been lagging on games recently. I mean, one game doesn't even exist anymore, and there's a physical copy, and that's Concord. It does not even exist. Does that count? Do those physical discs count as sales anymore? I'm not sure. Do the digital sales count? I don't think anything counts. Do they just erase it from their books? I don't know. Either way, you look at this chart here. When it comes to the games, Sackboy, physical sales. Ratchet and Clank, physical sales. Ghost of Tsushima, physical sales. Demon's Souls, Spider-Man, Returnal, The Last of Us Part 2, MLB The Show. And yes, it's definitely more slided towards digital now at this point, but there's still people, a lot of people, as you can see, when it comes to Sony's big titles, that actually buy physical. And we also have another one from, I think it's Elena Analytics, and I probably said that name wrong, but they went over physical versus digital split. And once again, yes, a lot of digital, but there's still a good amount of people buying physical, even with newer games. Resident Evil Requiem, based off of their data, 3.5 million units. Now, it's sold way more now, but at the time when it sold that 3.5, 27.8% physical. That's pretty good, going near 30%. You look at 007 First Light, 21%. Out of the 2 million, 21%. Once again, some of these numbers are old, so keep that in mind. They're not the most up-to-date, but these are some of the newer games. 21% physical. Also, Christopher Dring reported that in Europe, 007 First Light sold over 230,000 units physical. So it was also over 20% of the overall sales for that first time period that he was tracking. You look at Crimson Desert, that's about 20% physical out of the 1.9 million that they did right away. That's still a good percentage. It's not like it's 1% or it's 2%. I think if you're doing 20, 30% of big titles that are coming out, that's just them wanting to squeeze you. There is no reason to get rid of that. Now, sure, can Sony think that they can convert those people over to digital? Yes, but that's what it's about. It's not about sitting there and saying, oh, well, we just can't do this because it's costing so much. It's about just wanting to squeeze people and get more money out of them because they are worried about what's happening next generation. They're worried about their PlayStation 6 and it probably not selling anywhere near as well. because it's going to be $1,000 plus, and they want to hang on to the PlayStation 5, and they want to force everyone to get more money out of each person because they know that there's going to be people that drop off. Also, if you look at Ghost of Yotei, that also had 35.4% physical. That game is somewhat recent. 35.4% physical from the data that they tracked at the beginning of the sales. That's pretty good. You're getting millions of people buying physical games. If you total up all this and put it together, there are millions of physical game purchases. That is something that is a reality. I do not understand why people try to act like physical game purchasing is like this so small, tiny 1 or 2 or 3% of game sales. What you guys are doing, what a lot of people are doing, is that they're taking the overall digital sales, which the majority of games are digital on PSN. Most games do not have a physical counterpart. Now, a lot of games do, but a lot of games don't. There's a ton of indie games where they can't afford the physical version of the game, or they don't have that type of revenue to push that out. And if the game does well, then they can do a physical version of the game. But if you look at a lot of titles, they're either not offered physically right there at the launch. Like, let's say a game like Hollow Knight. Look how much that sold last year. But the physical is still, I don't think it's out yet, or it's coming out, right? So people didn't even have the option to buy the game. If they had the option to buy the game physical, obviously there would have been a lot of physical sales too. Sure, more digital, but there would have been a lot of physical sales, especially since that Switch 2 version's on cart, and of course the PS5 version is going to be complete on the disc. People would love that for their collection. People are going to double dip buy that because it's not going to be super expensive either. So for me at least, looking at people trying to push back on this and say, oh, the data shows that nobody's buying because of the first half of 2026? What? Like, that doesn't mean anything. Look at the games that were released. There wasn't a ton of big AAA titles that even got nice physical releases. There wasn't a lot. We got to wait for this second half. I think there's going to be an explosion. I think there's even going to be more people now buying games. When it comes to physical, look out for those Wolverine sales. I doubt Sony will give us the data for Wolverine. I don't think that they will. I think they're going to just be like, hey, look, it sold this. They're not going to give us any splits on Wolverine or God of War Lao Fei or anything, because you got their social media sites when it comes to those two games having to confirm, oh, it's on disc. And everyone said, oh, good job, it's on disc. If nobody cared, then why would they even make those statements from those companies, right? I guess because everyone's yelling at them. But still, like, it's just crazy to me. There's no reason for Sony to get rid of physical discs. There's no reason for gamers to be arguing against physical discs. It is an option, even if you buy digital. It's good to have that other marketplace, because why would you want Sony controlling everything when it comes to the pricing and the flow of PlayStation 5 or PlayStation 6 games? Why would you want that? You want more options. You want to be able for them to compete for your dollar. A lot of times when you see a game on sale physical, you might get somehow a game on sale digital and vice versa. We need both of them. It is a partnership. It is not one versus the other. I said this before, I'll say it again. We have way too many people trying to put it as a physical versus digital, like it's a battle for who does more. Bro, it is a battle to coexist. It is not a battle for who does more. We know digital sales do better. I get that. But still, there is no reason for Sony to get rid of this. I think it's silly. I think it's anti-consumer. I think it's short-sighted. And I think it's going to push a lot of people away. Now, will they be okay? No company is too big to fail. Keep that in mind. Remember, a lot of companies have done really well and then sunk to the depths after they made some crucial mistakes. Nintendo was one of those companies. We saw it with PlayStation when it comes to the PS2 to the PS3. We saw it with the Wii when it comes to the Wii to the Wii U. You're never too big to fail or get stomped when it comes to the competition out there. And if Nintendo, once again, they've got the Switch 2 that's selling great, that supports at least some type of physical when it comes to game key cards and outright physical media that plays off the cartridge with most of Nintendo's first-party games and a growing number of third-party titles. I'm telling you, I don't think that you can just come out here with a $1,000 system, never support any physical, have anti-consumer stuff that's going on here, not pass on any discounts when it comes to the digital games, only being digital now at this point, not pass any of that on and sit there and say, buy our $1,000 system if it turns out to be that. I think that's going to be a tough sell for people, no matter how much they like PlayStation. People are going to stick with their PS5s. But hey, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe everyone just adopts over to digital. And what I'm saying here, I'm just a small minority of people out there that are talking, but I don't know. I don't think so. I think there's enough people, and I think that there is enough sales based off of recent games and past games that it should be around. And the only reason why they're doing this is to make more money. Once again, there is no benefit to the consumer outside of removing an option. It doesn't matter if you're all digital or all physical or anything. There should be no removal of options and how people game in this type of way. I think it's just ridiculous, in my opinion. But hey, you know, what do I know? But what do you guys think when it comes to everything that I talked about here? You can let me know in the comment section below. All right, peeps, that wraps it up for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you are someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other content on this topic and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you for the next one. Peace.